Hey all, Gavor from Belligerent Older Gamers here. Today we're looking at a game called Low Magic Age. Now, Low Magic Age comes from a place called Low Magic Studios. Their one and only game is Low Magic Age. It is currently in early access, so currently still in development. They describe this as a tactical combat plus adventure sandbox, which is kind of what I found up until this point. It's pretty much made up of exploring a map, finding monsters, going to locations, and killing those monsters, taking all of their loot, rinse, repeat. You know what? It's actually it's a really good recipe. It works particularly well. The combat is reminiscent of the old SSI gold box games, things like Pool of Radiance, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Silver Blades, and things like that. Definitely worth checking those ones out because I was playing Pool of Radiance recently, and it is still a good game. Clunky, but good. Now, Low Magic Studios uses Wizards of the Coast's open license, or the OGL Open Gaming license. These are basically guidelines for building your own 5th edition content. Generally, it's like the current edition, 5th edition being current. So they've taken this and they've used to build out their own world, universe, and adapted the rules to their own purpose. It's just a lot easier than making up your own rule set. As mentioned, it uses turn-based combat, so it's grid-based, turn-based combat. Each character, of which you can have between 4 and 6 in your party, gets basically 2 actions, a move action and another action, which is generally like attack or cast or whatever. There's little caveats in there, like some spells can't be cast after moving, and I think some actions can be rolled into a move attack. I found that there's some really interesting dungeon layouts. The way the dungeon seems to work is there's this little, just squares. So there's like entrances, main rooms, and whatever, and then there's like these rows of squares which are parts of a corridor, steps as you go down a corridor. And events can happen as you go down them. You might encounter some loot. You have to use the open locks skill or some traps, and you've got to try to actually see or evade the trap and then maybe disarm the trap if it's one that needs to be disarmed. I found from building my party that I didn't start with those skills, and I actually thought it was because I didn't have a rogue. I really rarely add a rogue into my parties these days because they're kind of useless. And however, I found out later on as I went on that these skills were unlockable. There's a whole bunch of unlockable skills and abilities you can get by going to different places as the game unfolds. There's also quests, which are great for making money, standard quests. Maybe you'll go somewhere and see something, like get a price update in a town, which is something I did, or maybe you'll go and fetch something, or go and kill a number of monsters, get a number of gold, clear out some areas, all things like that, of which you'll get some sort of rewards. Now I guess back to the light dungeon layout, I quite enjoyed it. It was really good. Going from spot to spot and having the events happen felt, I don't know, it was just simple and easy. You could wend your way through, have a few fights, and find some loot, find some treasure, and make your way out again. The combat itself, just circling back a little bit, I really enjoyed. Like I said, reminiscent of the old SSI games, and it seems to come together really well. It's so far I found fast paced. You get it at the end of a lot of equipment. I found like a lot of equipment. From the first few battles, I was finding I was getting +1 items like weapons and armors and whatnot. I'd fight 4 bears and they would drop a tower shield and a +1 mace and a bunch of other bits and pieces. Along with some bear fur and other stuff that I think you use for crafting. There is a crafting system in there which I haven't really touched on a lot yet. So I found, because of all of that I wasn't all that challenged, and a couple of other things that sort of worked their way into that to make it feel a little bit less challenging than it should be, and maybe I need to crank something up to make it more challenging, but you seem to heal quite quickly. Like, I'd go somewhere, I'd get injured by traps, I'd get into a combat a little bit later, and my guys would be all fully healed just from walking around the map a little bit. I think I'm missing something here because it wasn't consistent. At times, I'd get into a combat, get a couple of my guys quite injured, then I'd wander around for half a day, get into another combat, and I would find that my guys weren't healed. So, I don't know, probably just like sort of early days, I haven't really got my head around it yet. You need to make sure you've got spell components. Spell components are fairly pricey and you use them up when you're casting. They seem to be generic, so like in most games, you buy spell components, and they just sort of abstract out to, you know, your piece of amber and your pinch of fluff and whatever else it might list in the actual ingredients for a spell. I had 2 casters. You know, I've got a sorcerer here, I've got a magic user. I've never really felt like I've run out of spells. I've got ample opportunity to rest and get them back. You know, so I've never come anywhere near running out of spells again. Makes it feel a little bit easy. Most combats, I've got each one of them to cast like a summon elemental, so then I've got 2 additional party members under AI control that go off and do their own thing too, which has really helped. So I mean, there are a few like little niggles that I think will be cleared up again. Early access game, so the balancing is going to be out. There are over 100 monsters. I've seen, maybe 6 or 7, so there's obviously a lot of content that they've packed in there, and having rules that they've taken from the OGL, the Open Gaming License, means that these will be all fleshed out. I'm assuming that they've taken them out of the OGL, like out of the 5th edition type monster bestiary, which is like a real positive. It means that you're going to have, fully fleshed out monsters. You're not going to continue on and find the higher level stuff. It's just stuff they've been grasping for content and had to make up off the top of their heads. But they talk about, they're really passionate about tabletop role-playing games. They're really into it. They seem to be quite a small team from what I can tell. They were, role-playing enthusiasts who finally, had the time and knowledge to go ahead and start making their own sort of dream game, which is really encouraging. That's the sort of game that I like, sort of story that I like to hear. And they talk a lot about how they've inherited classic game rules. What they do seem to be doing is a lot of fun. It's easy to use. It's clear. It makes sense. They've implemented the rules well, and the turn base is really fun. I love turn-based combat. I found myself going back to it, even though it all feels rather like generic, rather classical fantasy. They do have tons of equipment. Yeah, like I've said, I've already got stacks of it. Maybe they're giving it all away as a bit of a show off. Like, hey, look at all this cool stuff we've got. 60 plus common and 90 plus wondrous items, 80 plus different types of enchantment. They've got all the different types of damage in there, like say slashing, piercing, bludgeoning, the things that you'd be quite familiar with. Gloves of dexterity and belts of giant strength and all that sort of thing appear to be in there. The skills and the spells that are in there, quite diverse, like quite a big range, which is great. There's lots of things to choose from and read about. That the tooltips and the help that goes with it are like really good, really well implemented. They've got everything you need to do a comparison. Probably the only thing so far that I found is a bit weird is, and maybe it's just because I haven't played a lot of 5th edition, is the skills you get to choose from. So you've got like your feats and your perks, I think they are, but you've also got skills. So when you level up, you get a bunch of skill points that you can do your normal level up, choose your spells, do your feats and all that sort of thing, get yourself done. Then you got these skill points after that. You can go to a skill screen and you allocate them out to this pretty short list of skills, none of which seem to tie into what the character is. I think I know how they all work, but I found myself not being able to use up all my skill points and sitting there going, well, why isn't this just part of the level up process? And it just needs a bit more guidance. I think it's kind of there at the moment and needs to be better explained, or I need to better understand it. I am happy to admit that perhaps I just don't get it. So, all up, so far I've played it for maybe 2 or 3 hours. So this is like a bit of a first look. Like a bit of a, hey, this is what the game is all about. Have a look at this, check this out. This is what I've seen so far. And like, I guess my first impressions. So from what I've seen so far, this game is definitely my kind of thing, and I do want to go on and keep playing it, and I would recommend it to people to check out. I don't know about buying into it at about, I think it's $20, but I definitely wouldn't hesitate to say, hey, look, if you've got the money, or you see it on sale at the moment, go and grab it, even though it's in early access, and just have a bit of a look through, put a few hours in, check it out, have a bit of fun, and I think it's going to evolve over time into something that's quite interesting. Maybe not unique, but I don't think it's going to matter. It's one of those games where it's fun to play, even though it doesn't bring anything innovative or new or like super special to the table that hasn't been done before. It's something that's just fun, and that's one of those things that I think people miss in gaming these days, that they're all looking for innovation and the best graphics and, something that's unique and new and complete twist on what's been done before. So, and they think if without that they think that's what fun is. But something can be fun even though it's been done 100 times before. As long as it's done well, maybe just bring something a little bit new to the table, so you're doing it in a new way, but it still hits all those, I don't know, those trigger points that make you happy and want to keep playing. And this feels like one of those. It's just fun. I just enjoyed playing it. Maybe I won't get more than 15-20 hours out of it, but given the buy-in price, especially if you get it on sale, that's a lot of fun to be had, for a fairly low entry price. So I wouldn't hesitate to say, give it a go, check it out, see what you think. And I certainly will be continuing on for a little bit longer, and then I would like to put it aside for a little while and maybe come back to it in 6-9 months time and see what else they've done, because it's just that sort of game. I think as it evolves over time, it'll become even more fun. So I don't know, let me know what you think, and I'll probably revisit this game again in the future with a proper review once it's much more fleshed out. I hope you enjoyed this. Certainly check out some of other videos, other reviews, first impressions, and let's plays, and I will see you next time.